What's up, everybody? This is A7X Van Ben, and this is another fleet making video. So in this one, I'm going to use Grim the Savage. So it's going to be a modified version of something I played in December 2022 against Witch, one of the best players I've ever played against. It's called Guide Grim to the Goodies. So it uses Grim the Savage and some exploring ships, and basically tries to find out what coins are in play, and then use that to determine if you should raid an enemy's home island, which is hopefully the goal, or might be the goal depending on what you find. So this fleet is probably going to be used in its first game with no endgame trigger of the more than half. So it's going to be still 16 total coins for 30 gold, but we're not going to use the more than half endgame trigger. So I'm just going to test that out. It is going to be used against the HMS Grand Temple UPS fleet, but it's not a counter to that fleet, and it's just kind of the matchup. Neither fleet knows it's facing each other in like lore, thoughts or whatever. Like, they're not game planning against each other. They're just going to match up that way. And hopefully I'm going to use both fleets again at some point this year, but we'll see how this first game goes. It might be a little bit of a weird mismatch. This fleet might not be able to compete against the Universal Pirate Shipping variant, but I think it might be a decent fleet. So we're gonna map it out here. So when I said modified version, this was kind of the dumbed down version, because with the PNW house rules, we didn't have like events and stuff like that, and it wasn't designed to be like the most competitive anyway. But we're gonna try to make a competitive version. So this is like the full version basically, and I might figure out the description a little bit later. Okay. Well, actually, I know I'm gonna have Hidden Cove. So Hidden Cove for 2 points plus, I think I'm going to use Becalmed as well. I'm pretty sure. So I'm just going to put that, and I can always change it later if not. But anyway, so a lot of the competitive fleets I make, I try to go easy on the events, but I think this could really benefit from Becalmed, slowing the enemy down, because this fleet is going to have almost no combat capability whatsoever. So, all right, so we're going to start with Cassandra. So this is one of the best ships for Grim the Savage, especially in a small game. So Grim the Savage is a Viking crew that allows you to steal as many gold coins from your opponent's home island as the ship can carry. He's 6 points, so we need a way to get him aboard. And it's going to be Crimson Angel from the Rise of the Fiends set. And it's going to be the limited edition version, I believe. Or no, it's not, sorry. It's going to be the regular version. So that's easy. It makes it easier to build a fleet if you're trying to make this home, but easily you can just proxy her in for the LE version. But anyway, so Crimson Angel, of course there's going to be a helmsman, speed of S+S, so we need to boost that up here. So we get triple S speed, and then we're going to take the filter off, all factions, just type Grim, and there is a pirate version of him, but we don't want a Marine, we want the home island hoarder. That's who we're looking for here. So that maxes out the ship's point cost. The reason it's such a good ship for him is because the other 5 points are taken up by these two crew that allow him aboard and to get the ship faster. But then we still have 3 cargo spaces left open to hoard treasures with. So that's a decent amount. You could get away with 2, but a lot of times, I don't know, spending 6 points to steal 2 coins at once is that's where the balance, I feel, gets a little bit risky, because you might steal a couple ones, you might not steal enough to turn the tide and kind of swing the gold race in your favor. So in this case, it's kind of a conceptual policy that I like to have, where if you have home island hoard, which is usually through Grim the Savage, I think a few ships have it, but Belladonna, Wicked Wench, but generally I like to have at least 3 cargo spaces open for home island hoard, just to make it more effective and to be able to take more treasure. So especially because you can't really assume that you'll be able to go back and take more on the next turn. Maybe if their home island is wide open, but usually if you go after them with this, they're coming hard at you at their home island, understandably. So that's 22 points. So just over half of the build total. We are going to add a +5, so it's 22 out of 45 essentially. And then we're going to add Morocco next. So this ship is both a Gold Runner and a Spire. So she's one of my favorite Barbary Corsair ships. 8 points it's a pretty good deal. It's not a It's not their best ship or their most cost-effective ship, but it's a pretty good one. So good cargo, very good cargo, solid speed. We're going to boost that a little bit. And one of the keys is that you can look at a face-down treasure on any island, and you can use that on any player's turn, not just your own. So every round, we're going to be spying 4 things per turn, basically. So Cassandra, instead of treasure on any island, it's cargo on any ship. So this is where the knowledge is power advantage really shifts in our favor. So we're going to be looking at 2 coins, like in a 1v1 game. That's what this is kind of designed for. Because in multiplayer, this might get blown out of the water and it's hard to decide who to raid. It might be fun in a multiplayer game, but it's kind of, I'm not really to that step yet, I guess, with this fleet. So for every round that each player plays 1v1 game, we're going to be seeing 2 treasures on different islands or the same island. So, and also cargo on enemy ships. So that can be their crew, face down crew equipment, or treasures. So at first, it's going to help us see what threats are in the opposing fleet. If there's a canceller that might cancel Grim the Savage, or if they have like a face down sack crew or same action twice, which we'll need to watch out for in case they suddenly flip it and then all of a sudden their gunship gets in range of Cassandra and starts blasting at her. Things like that will help us, maybe play on the defensive a little bit, or we'll have prior knowledge of some potential threats in their fleet. But then later on in the game, it might actually help us even more, because once they start loading coins, if those are coins we haven't seen with the Morocco, we can peek at them with Cassandra once they're on an enemy ship, because that's cargo. And then based on that, we might see that they have a 7 that we want to steal. So, or we might see that they're getting a bunch of crappy stuff. And this is really powerful because we might find crappy coins on our islands, and then with Cassandra find that they're not getting good stuff either. And then from there, we can know that the last unexplored island might have 15 gold on it or something. So the knowledge is power is a really, really, it's just a really neat mechanic, and something that I've really utilized well to win some games, and I think is probably some of the most underrated abilities in the game. It's partly because Wolf talked about a couple of years ago during the Pacific Northwest Seattle like Pirates Weekend. It was like October 2022. I don't know if it was Witch that brought it up. Somebody asked why you couldn't use this on every player's turn, and I had always just assumed it was like once per turn, like once per this ship's turn or whatever. But you can use it on every player's turn. So that kind of revolutionized the ability in a way. I mean, that was already the ruling, but I just didn't know, and I guess I don't know if other people just don't use the ability much either, and they had either assumed the same thing or just didn't really use it much. But now it's kind of a more competitive ability in the meta, or it always was, but now it feels more competitive because you can use it twice as often at a minimum, or in a 3-player game, you can use it 3 times per round. So you can start to learn a lot of things even when it's not your turn, which is pretty neat. So, and it keeps you really engaged in the game, because you're always thinking about like, okay, if there's a 4 there and I know I have 12, if I get that gives me 16, whatever. So anyway, that's enough about that for now. So Morocco is going to have Helmsman and Explorer, pretty standard crew for a Gold Runner. And oh yeah, I got to add it through the crew. Whoops. Okay. So this will give her SSS speed, and obviously she'll be able to take treasure as soon as she gets to an island, so she doesn't have to wait. So that'll speed her up. That's good too, because Cassandra does not have an Explorer. Cassandra is kind of a hybrid of sorts. Not really a hybrid, but she could run gold conventionally in this fleet, but I'd rather not have her get hit with plague or natives, because that'll pretty much doom the fleet's chances most likely. So it's looking like Jolly Mon plus Hag, so kind of a typical. Anytime I'm making a competitive fleet, it's hard not to avoid some cheese just to beef it up and make the fleet more competitive. So it's gonna be kind of a cheesy few months here, if you will. So that's just kind of the way a lot of competitive fleets are. So Hag of Tortuga, so she gives us +5 to our build total, which will allow us to get to 45 total. Those 5 do need to come at the end, but we already have various combinations of 5 points that we can add later. So So that's pretty easy. Hidden Cove I already put in the description. So we're probably going to be working to 39 here. I think I do want to add Becalmed, the event. So yeah, I said 9 more points. Now that these 3 ships are in Hidden Cove. So yeah, if we do Hidden Cove and Becalmed, we're at 40. So then we have 5 points left. So I said maybe Raft, but this is where I don't really know the best thing to do. It's not really enough points for a gunship. The cheapest gunship I can really think of is Algeciras with a captain, but that's 6. So we're basically just not going to have a captain ability in this fleet, which is kind of a problem, but it's all about the gold, basically. So I don't really know. This is where like the brainstorming comes into play, because I don't really know how I want to finish this fleet. That was pretty much the ideas I had so far. I thought about Raft, because then if one of your ships sinks, you can put the gold on it on like the nearest wild island, but I don't know about that. I think the key is to optimize the 5 points, obviously, but I don't know if we're going to add it. I think we're going to add a cheap ship. It's so easy to go with Banshee's Cry. And that might happen, but so Lucky the Parrot, I thought about a little bit to increase our spying capability. Can spy a face-down cargo on any ship. Unfortunately, there's not an island spire like the Morocco that's cheap enough to add. The other ones are either like expensive crew or ships that are more than 5 points. So I didn't see any anyway. I might just make sure real quick. But I don't think there's any other ones. So this is a really easy way to do it. You can just highlight like part of an ability and then search it. So Raven's Neck, I love that ship, but Marksman's Map, Morocco, Pearl is 9 points. So yeah. So the thing about Lucky the Parrot is I don't know if we're going to need him. I don't know if that's really the best way to spend that point, because we already have Cassandra and Morocco. We're already going to be spying a lot. So if we can spy on 2 cargo per ship per turn, that's a lot. Like we'd know all the enemy crew within like a round or 2, and then we could really see what they have face down. I guess I might still add it. I think it's probably going to be Banshee's Cry, maybe Explorer, and then Lucky the Parrot. And part of my thinking there is Morocco and Banshee's Cry can go to different islands, and then Cassandra can follow one of them. Maybe Morocco, because she's a little faster. L+L on Banshee's Cry is slower than SSS, which is going to be the speed that Cassandra and Morocco are traveling at. So, or Cassandra could try to protect Banshee's Cry a little bit, but we'll see. So Banshee's Cry with an Explorer, L+L speed, and then Lucky the Parrot for the final 5th point in that little mini setup. And that way we're spying even more. I don't know if that's kind of overkill on the spying. It might be, but I don't know if there's going to be a better usage of those points. So I don't think I'm going to bother with Raft. You could take out Lucky the Parrot or the Explorer and add Raft, but part of the problem with Raft is I don't really have any faith in this fleet's ability to actually get the gold back. So you're going to reveal Raft immediately after one of your ships sinks. Place all crew. That's not, I don't even want that. Place all crew and gold on that ship onto the nearest wild island. So a couple problems here. The fleet has no combat capability. So even if I'm able to get that stuff back, maybe if Cassandra sinks, maybe Morocco can go get her stolen gold onto the Morocco and I could try to bring it home. But then she might get waylaid by the same ship that hit Cassandra. And the other problem is Grim the Savage. If he gets put on a wild island, I guess it's, to be fair, it's very unlikely, or somewhat unlikely, that an opponent will be able to take Grim the Savage and actually use him. But they might have a crew of any nationality, crew or ability in their fleet. They might be using the Grand Barnacle. There are some competitive fleets that use crew of any nationality, like Brother Virgil. I don't think it's too likely, but that's a risky bet. I forgot that you put the crew on the island too, because I haven't used Raft in probably multiple years maybe. So I think it just sounds really risky. I don't think I want to bother with that. So we're going to just do kind of a basic setup here. The Cry, And yeah, we're gonna add lucky. Being able to spy that many enemy cargo per turn is pretty amazing. So I'll try that out. This is probably the part of the fleet that's most subject to change, is the Banshee's Cry crew. Maybe even the Crier herself, but I just can't think of a better ship to add for the last 5 points, unfortunately. If we had 6, I might do Algeciras, but that might not really affect things much. This way, we'll have 2 ships going to different islands, Banshee's Cry and Morocco, so 2 exploratory ships, if you will. The idea of the Cassandra following behind one of them is that if there is plague or natives, one of these basic treasure runners can kind of soak up any negative UTs and deal with them. And then if there's still good gold on the island, it'll already be explored, and then Cassandra can go in and take that and not have to deal with, well, natives would be really bad, but at least you won't get hit with plague or whatever, or missionary, for example. So, and speaking of which, that might be the next thing for this fleet. I might think about islands next, I guess. Let me make sure the points look right. Yeah, 39. So Hidden Cove is 2, Becalmed is 4. So that will get us to 45. For the +5 from the Hag of Tortuga, I'm not sure which of the 5 points would be most optimal to add last. That's a whole nother meta that I'm hoping to get into with the setup phase. When I do these competitive games, I want to make it more standardized and more meta, where I do the combined set rules and we go in order, the exact order. So for example, placing crew comes after placing islands, terrain, and choosing home islands. So the +5 crew come in pretty late. So you might base your +5 choices on the setup. So, but that's a whole nother meta. Realistically, the most likely things to be added to be the +5 are one in the events and at least one of the crew. So like maybe Becalmed and Lucky the Parrot, for example. But anyway, so, and speaking of the combined set rules, that's why in this little preview draft document, I put islands, then terrain, then coins, because that's the setup order. First you do islands, then you place terrain, and then you don't actually have to place treasure. You don't actually have to really, it doesn't say you have to pick your treasure you contribute until after. So, because they're not part of the build total. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know how much this is going to affect things this year. It might not affect things much at all. But for example, you could place treasure based on all this other stuff. So you're going to be able to see what faction your opponent's ships are. You're going to be able to see how much terrain is out there. Like you might be intending to use unique treasures that have something to do with terrain or whirlpools, and then that might change what you put in. For example, like Witch's Brew, this is just a random tangent. I'll get back to the fleet soon. But for example, let's say you want to put 6 terrain, your opponent wants to place 1 each or 0. And then due to that dispute, you roll a d6. Whoever gets the higher roll gets what they want for the number of terrain added. And then there's no terrain. But you have like a fleet that you want to use with fog. You might bring out Witch's Brew and be like, okay, at least this way I can get fog banks into the game. And then you might add Lost as well. Versus if you got your roll for terrain, you could put 6 fog banks out there to start the game. So a lot of interesting things that I think get overlooked in the combined set rules, me included, because I understand most games aren't this meta or this I'm trying to like go to another level with like the meta stuff and competitive play this year and things like that, and just kind of thinking about the game in more depth than ever before, at least in terms of 40-point games, at least in terms of like the standard setup and whatnot. So that gets us back to islands. So no extra actions in this fleet, and I think we want islands as close as possible. So the reason for that is none of the ships can move faster than SSS in a turn. There's no extra action capability, and it's going to be hard to even get to the islands. So 3L is longer than 3S, of course. So even the minimum distance would be plenty for this fleet. And the other thing is, with Grim the Savage, we want islands as close as possible in general so that we can home island raid and then get home as fast as possible. So basically I would go minimum. So I'm gonna add this to the description at the end. And of course our opponent might place islands as far apart as possible, but then we'll try to go in between. And like, with the alternating player order, I've found that a lot of times the island setup ends up looking pretty similar. But I guess at some point I might have a matchup where both fleets want the islands as far apart as possible, and then they'll actually be 6L apart. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. So, and then terrain, fog banks, I mean, kind of easy to explain. There's no combat capability. This is like a very deceptive, like hidden fleet where we're basically trying to like spy on the opponent and then steal all their gold and then like not fight basically. So there's no reason to add any other terrain type, I don't think. Sargasso Seas might slow down the Cry or Morocco. Reefs, maybe if the opponent has like a couple 5-masters, maybe a reef, but they're probably just going to avoid it. Whirlpools are an interesting one. It's an option, I guess. If at least like 5 or 6 terrain or more are placed per player, I think you could consider putting a couple whirlpools out there to help Cassandra get away with the gold. But with no extra actions, it's harder to justify that. Because like I've talked about a little bit in the past, whirlpools are really good when you have extra actions available and stuff like sack. So for example, Cassandra might be able to make a faster getaway via a whirlpool near an enemy home island after she's stolen some gold via Grim the Savage. But if the opponent has sack, they might come through that whirlpool and then sack on the other side of it and then derelict the Cassandra or steal some gold back, things like that, or capture the ship. So I think whirlpools are really risky for this fleet. I would go with all fog generally as a default. And then for coins, we want to have defensive unique treasures. So I'm going to put relics in for sure. I'm probably going to put in the Cross of Coronado. Similar with some other fleets, I might not finish this right now, but I can at least add a few defensive UTs. So actually we can filter this. Whoops. So I think I'm going to try that. We might as well look for a few more. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but we can look for a few more defensive UTs. So like Letter of Marque is kind of interesting. I might add that too. Why not? Because we're going to be docking an opponent's home island anyway. That way you could stay there and repair. I don't know. I've always thought about Letter of Marque being used with home island raiders, but I don't think I've ever home island raided with this treasure aboard. And even if I have, I don't think it was practical to stay there and repair or something. Like it's a really niche case, but I'll put it in. I think the regular treasures are going to be 5s. I might do 3 5s. I don't know if that's if I max out UTs. So for the 8 coins for 15 gold, max UTs is 5 because you have to have the other 3 coins. You have to have 15 gold no matter what. So the most extreme you can do is 771 because 7 is the highest value. There's no 8s for coins. So 771 is like the max extreme if you do max UTs. Or you can do, obviously you can do 654, I guess. We're probably going to do 3 5s, but I guess 654 might, that kind of sounds interesting. Might try that. But in that case, I'd have to find more defensive UTs. Oh, Neptune's Figurehead. All right, I'll do that one. Yeah, it's easy to find these. So I'll probably do all 5. I don't really know if this is fully optimized. I don't know if I should do less UTs and more regular coins, but I like the idea of an opponent finding like some of this, and it might not be useful against me. That's part of the reason I'm adding these, is like if an opponent finds these, I'm not going to attack them anyway, probably. So if they find them, it might not benefit them. But if I find them, I mean, I'm probably going to be pretty happy about it. So like relics is a good defensive one. Neptune's Figurehead. I'm probably not going to sink an opposing ship in this game. I don't think so. Maybe, but I think my cannons are all rank 4 or worse pretty much. So, all right, so one more. And again, this might change at some point in the future. I don't know if these are all going to be like the final UTs. I might figure out that there's a better way to do it or a better setup. But wet gunpowder. Oh, that's actually a good one to add. That or like Luddite's Revenge. Oh, I like this actually, because I'm not gonna shoot. Hopefully, if this fleet is shooting, then it's probably towards the end of the game. It's probably getting desperate. So the idea is just to get as much gold as possible. So UTs. So we got some good defensive ones here. I like this. Relics, Cross Coronado, Letter Mark, Edmund's Figurehead. Wet Gunpowder, if I find it, I wasn't going to shoot anyway, hopefully. And then if an opponent finds it, that could really... I mean, it probably won't be found by a gunship or a hybrid, but whatever. So, yeah, there's probably other really good options. Karmic Idol is an option, but I don't think I want to do that. It's kind of a weird, like, fun ruiner. Not the biggest fan of that one. Albatross is a good one. That might actually be... That's probably a better one to add. I might try that instead of Wet Gunpowder. At first, I would like that idea a lot, but I don't... The problem is the big enemy gunship that Cassandra is a little bit scared of in this game is probably not going to be the one exploring to find Wet Gunpowder. It's probably going to be like a opposing Banshee's Cry or something. So Albatross might be more likely to affect more than one of the opponent's ships. So that's kind of my thinking there. There's other ones. There's some other defensive ETs. Holy Water. That one's really complicated, so I kind of try to avoid it. It's like a rules nightmare. So Luddite's Revenge is decently kind of similar to Wet Gunpowder, but I don't know. I think this is okay. Mines would be okay, but that might hurt me. So these 5 are a good start. That's a good start. And then, yeah, I think I'd do maybe 654 possibly for that. Just going to do etc. because people might not be using the standard distance for islands. So I think that pretty much does it. Let me save this here. So I might do more of a description at some point, but for the video, I'm not going to type a bunch of stuff out or anything. So, okay. So that's our fleet. So we add the 2 events, get us to 45 total. So overall, I don't know how competitive it's going to be, but it is definitely a much more competitive version of this fleet than what I played against Witch, with events legal and everything. I don't know who's going to be hidden coved out. I don't know if it's going to be used on the first turn. That's actually a really good one. You could even be really risky about it and save Hidden Cove for later in the game when it might help the Cassandra with a home island raid. That's actually something I didn't think about at all. So might actually want to review the wording on it, because you don't have to use it early in the game. You could do... This is wild. You could home island raid and then Hidden Cove at the beginning of your next turn. That would be really wild. I don't know if it would work well, but I think one issue with this game, or one issue with this fleet in a regular game, is the distance between islands. I think that could be a rough time. So, because Cassandra can't get from an enemy home island, even if your home island and your opponent's home island are right next to each other, they're still going to be at least 3L apart. So she can't get home the turn after raiding. So other ships might have to run some ramming and boarding interference to try to help her get home safely. So ideally, this fleet would be used in a 40-point game where you just don't use the minimum island distance rules. So then you could put islands like 2L apart, which is shorter than 3S speed, for example. But we'll see how it does in standard games. So anyway, hope you like the fleet. Be curious to hear what you think of it. And for question of the day, I guess the question of the day is, do you think this fleet can hold up against proper competitive fleets? And by proper, I mean something that usually probably has like some kind of gunship threat, or is like a universal pirate shipping threat. Because this is going to face the HMS GT UPS fleet. And if it does well, it might make it into a competitive tournament. We'll see. And if not, I might just play it in some other games at some point this year. But I'm just curious to see if you think it'll do well in competitive play or not, or if it'll be outmatched by most competitive fleets. So I think it might stand a chance. Be Calmed on the first turn could be key. You can only play one event token, or one beginning of turn event token per turn, I think. So I guess ideally this fleet would use Be Calmed on the first turn, freeze the enemy fleet, or at least as many of their ships as possible, and then get a head start in the gold race. Or you could use Hidden Cove on the first round. Okay, this fleet is going to get pretty complicated, I think, with the event play. You could use Hidden Cove on the first round and use it to explore quickly, and then save Be Calmed for after Cassandra raids the enemy home island. That could be a really good move. I didn't think of that until now. So, and then Cassandra raids, and then either on that beginning of that turn, you could flip Be Calmed on like their nearby ships in the region, or you could raid and then they react to it, and then your next turn starts with you playing Be Calmed and like freezing their sack gunship or whatever. So interesting possibilities for sure. So anyway, hope you like the fleet. Feel free to like the video if you did, and there's affiliate links in the description that you can check out to support the channel, and Pirates with Ben, my website, which you can find a link to as well down below. So thanks again for watching. This is A7X Fan Ben with a Grim the Savage fleet, and I'll see you in the next video.